Ever wonder why we focus so much on protein? It's more satiating than carbs or fat, which helps you feel fuller and delay hunger between meals. It also has a higher thermic effect than other macronutrients, which means we burn off more of its calories during digestion. A person who eats a substantial portion of lean protein at every meal will almost certainly eat fewer total calories. But will that higher protein diet help them lose weight? And if it does, is the effect more powerful for some people than for others? Researchers at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark try to answer those questions in a recent review. My name is Jeremy Colon, and this is The Dark Side of Fitness, episode 12. Before we start, let's talk about what is thermic effect. The thermic effect of protein is about 20 to 30%. So if you eat something with 100 calories from protein, digestion might burn off 30 of those calories. For carbs, the thermic effect is 5 to 10%, and for fat, it's 0 to 3%. So, how the study worked? The researchers searched for weight loss studies that compared diets with higher protein to a standard amount. They excluded studies with athletes or underweight participants, along with those that included exercise or pharmaceutical treatments. Most of the studies they used in their analysis compared protein to carbohydrates. In other words, if the diet was higher in protein, it was lower in carbs. If it was lower in protein, it was higher in carbs. In those 35 experiments, the average participant was 46 years old with a BMI of 34. About 2/3 were women. What the study found: participants in higher protein groups lost, on average, 1.6 kilograms or 3.5 pounds more than the standard protein groups. A handful of studies compared different protein sources, whey versus soy, for example. Evidence wasn't strong enough to assert that any protein source is clearly superior. Details you don't want to miss. Interestingly, the researchers didn't define higher or standard protein. The averages were about what you expect: 30% of total calories for higher protein diets versus 15% with the standard. But higher protein was just 20% in one study and 59% in another. That's certainly a limitation of this review. The range was much narrower for standard protein, from 2 to 20% of total calories. What's more, looking at protein as a percent of calories may have also been problematic. For example, 20% might be plenty of protein if the participants were active and consuming enough calories to maintain their weight. But if the participants were on a low-calorie diet, then 20% would be low for those folks. Does protein leverage explain the rise of obesity? The protein leverage hypothesis offers a simple but profound explanation for the obesity epidemic. Humans will eat until they're satisfied their need for protein. The idea makes intuitive sense. We know that protein-rich foods are highly satiating and that people generally eat fewer total calories on a higher protein diet. We also know that the foods we're most likely to overeat tend to be relatively low in protein. According to David Robbenheimer, PhD, and Stephen Simpson, PhD, who first proposed the idea in a 2005 study, the way our appetites respond to each macronutrient has deep evolutionary roots. Foods rich in fat were relatively rare for most of human history, and the availability of carbs and fruits and root vegetables was typically seasonal. When our ancestors came across those foods, they ate as much as they could, with no hardwired breaking mechanism. Their bodies could easily store any surplus calories they consumed, a trait many of us wish we hadn't brought with us into the modern world. The surplus came in handy when food was scarce, common for ancestral humans, not so much in affluent societies today. Protein is one of the macronutrients we can't store. And what I mean by that is the protein you eat can be broken down into amino acids and used to build new proteins for muscles, cells, and other tissues. But if it's not being utilized, there's no storage area where it accumulates for later use, like there is for fat and carbohydrates. That's why according to the protein hypothesis, we stop eating once we consume as much as we need. The idea is simple and elegant, but does it really work in real life? Research on human, alas, has been equivocal, meaning that this means some studies have shown some benefits while others are not. Another way you might express this, the research has been mixed. In a 2011 study, for example, participants were given meals with 3 different concentrations of protein, 10, 15, and 25% of total calories. As predicted, they ate more food with 10% protein versus 15%. But despite the fact they ate more food, they didn't match the amount of protein in their habitual diets, nor did they eat less food with 25% protein than 15%. The authors concluded that protein leverage is incomplete. The mechanism helps explain why some people eat too much in some circumstances, but it's not powerful enough to explain something as big and unprecedented as the obesity epidemic. Or is it? Kevin Hall, PhD, who creates sophisticated models of human nutrition needs for the U.S. National Institutes of Health, recently ran the numbers. He found an interesting paradox. The total amount of protein in the U.S. food chain has increased since the 1970s, concurrent with the rise in obesity. But because the availability of fat and carbs increased even more, the proportion of calories from protein actually declined by about 1%. Thus, protein exerts less leverage on our eating behaviors and we're more likely to overeat. Hall calculated that even this tiny decrease in the percentage of protein in our diets could account for 1/3 of the population-wide rise in adult body weights during the obesity epidemic. Here are some coaching takeaways. Number 1, the researchers' review has some flaws, but the findings support what has been expected. Specifically, protein is helpful for both weight and appetite control, and most people with these goals can benefit from consistently eating more. Number 2, protein recommendations don't need to be complex. I recommend a dose of lean protein at every meal. Aim for 1 palm, 20 to 30 grams of protein if you're a smaller person, and 2 palms if you're a larger and or highly active person. Here's what that looks like compared to 2 meals lower in protein at the graph above. Of course, some people will struggle to add lean protein every meal, so it's probably best to strive to help make progress and start slow. For example, maybe you can add 1 palm of lean protein, chicken, fish, tempeh to 1 daily meal. This would be in addition to what you're already eating, or if it's too hard, perhaps you could try adding 1 palm of lean protein to 1 meal 3 or 4 days a week. Find an action that seems too easy, and after you had success, build on it. Thank you for getting through to this portion of the video. If you like content like this, please like, subscribe, or share with anybody who can benefit from this. If you are on a weight loss diet or building muscle, rule of thumb is get as much protein as you can at every meal when you can. Protein has many wonderful benefits, from keeping you full, from helping from recovery, from building more muscle. So rule of thumb, just get it as much as you can, and you don't have to eat a whole lot of it all at once. Build up to it, especially if you're not used to eating a lot of meals at once. I know you can probably hear from a lot of people who are selling nutrition programs or bodybuilders or even fitness enthusiasts. They'll say, eat large portions of steak or meat or chicken, or the list goes on, or get as much protein shakes as you possibly can. Most important thing is make it make sense for your lifestyle, right? If your goals are this, make that reflect that in your output of what you're taking in, or your input or what you're taking in. So start slow, get as much protein as you can with every meal, and make it work for you. And bit by bit, when you get to those goals and you're happy with the results, then change it up, switch things up, try different. I say when it comes to protein, there's a lot of options. So definitely challenge yourself to try different things. You don't always have to take in protein shakes or drink protein shakes. You don't always have to eat red meat. You can try chicken, you can try fish, you can try different options. I guess, the biggest thing to take away is just have fun with it. Have fun taking in protein. This is your lifestyle, so make it make sense. Have fun with the process and get to those goals. Thank you, and have a great one. Take care.